Good day, everyone, and welcome to this knowledge sharing session. My name is Joy Amor Bailey, and I'm part of the Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund. Nature-based solutions have increasingly drawn attention as one of the effective and efficient approaches to addressing development challenges. NbS have evolved and aim to couple economic and environmental welfare and resilience within the Sustainable Development Goals framework. It also comes in many different forms, such as protected area management, ecosystem restoration, and green infrastructure. What is also common on this approach is there's a need for building the economic case for nature-based solutions. So thank you for joining us, and on behalf of the Urban Sector Group and Environment Thematic Group, we'd also like to invite Mr. Kim Pong Sang for his opening remarks. Mr. Sang is the Chief of the Rural Development and Food Security Agriculture Thematic Group and also the OIC Chief of the Environment Thematic Group at the Sustainable Development and Climate Change Department of ADB. Mr. Sang had extensive experience in East Asia and also contributed to regional cooperation for the ASEAN and the East and Central Asian countries on environment and water management. Mr. Sang holds a doctoral degree in environmental engineering from the Tsinghua University. Over to you, Mr. Sang.
Thank you so much, Joy. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. On behalf of the IDB, I warmly welcome you to this webinar on challenges and approaches in quantify nature-based solutions benefit stream. This webinar is jointly organized by the Environmental Thematic Group and the Urban Sector Group as a part of our Nature and Climate Nexus webinar series. After nearly a century of the believing that engineering solutions could conquer nature to make cities productive and efficient centers of the social and economic development, some urban planners have realized that nature is something to build into the open planning to design with, not against it. But how to invite the nature back in when cities have been built to keep the nature out? Urban infrastructure has relied on engineering solutions, and we have the default to traditional engineering for quickly reinvigorating economies in the wake of the coronavirus disease, COVID-19. But cities need new approaches, ones that build with the nature, that are not against it, ones that build forward better, not just back. New strategies should combine best practices engineering with nature-based solutions. Clearly, cities need solutions that reflect them to their biosphere. Nature-based solutions provide the natural ecosystem services that mitigate the impact of climate stresses, raise the climate resilience of urban areas, and also improve people's everyday welfare. However, there are key barriers hindering the uptake of the nature-based solutions in the cities and the communities, especially in the developing member countries. Among this is how to make the business case for NbS. Compared with the green infrastructure, NbS can be perceived as a complex, costly, and also uncertain. Shifting this perception requires a strong evidence base for NbS through the measuring and also monitoring the potential of the multiple benefits of the NbS. In this webinar, we will discuss the key factors and approach on the successful quantification of the multiple benefits using the NbS projects in the Philippines and also Indonesia, which are supported by the Urban Climate Change Trust Fund. We call it the UCCRTF. The presentation by Marshall Savage from the Oxford Consulting Partners were drawn on the UCRTF's knowledge product on the NbS. We will then hear from our NbS experts and also ADB colleagues sharing their insights about the challenges and also opportunities in quantify NbS benefit streams based on their experiences in supporting NbS projects in regional, city, and community contexts. I hope today's discussion will help clarify key aspects of the quantification of the NbS benefits and help open further discussions with the national, regional, and city decision makers as well as the private sector to enhance policies and also actions towards the implementing NbS in Asia and the Pacific. By taking this opportunity, I want to thank Chair and also the Yisong from the Environmental Thematic Group, Arup from the Open Sector Group, Verida and his UCCRTF team, and also partners for their contribution to this webinar. I also very grateful for Mr. Jimin Huang, the director of the Pacific Regional Department, and also the chair of the Open Sector Group Committee. She also took time to provide her reflections, and also will give the closing remarks and the end of the webinar. Her efforts greatly appreciated. I look forward an interactive and a meaningful discourse. Thank you, Joe. Over back to you.
Thank you very much, King Fon, and thank you also for your emphasis on the multiple benefits of NbS and the need for quantification of the benefits. To give us a short walkthrough on how NbS supports addressing urban challenges and also climate change, let me please invite my colleague, Ms. Sophia Moore, who is a leading expert on, who is also an urban planner and who brings experience in design and delivery of urban strategy and social infrastructure studies. Sophia has more than 12 years of experience in the built environment industry in projects that consider the relationship between people, land use, infrastructure, economic benefits, social development, and environmental outcomes. Sophia?
Thanks, Joy, for the introduction, and Mr. Zhang for the context of the importance of nature-based solutions. And of course, nature-based solutions, I would like to highlight what Mr. Zhang has already mentioned, that NbS is really important work, as there's recognition among built environment practitioners that conventional grey infrastructure or hard infrastructure has had a significant impact on natural systems and communities. So business as usual approaches to design and planning through siloed thinking and decision making and designs that work against natural systems has contributed to habitat and biodiversity loss, as well as unsustainable resource consumptions. So a shift is required. And nature-based solutions here are defined by the International Union of Conservation and Nature. And you can see the definition here, and it highlights that nature-based solutions have a really strong role in shifting beyond hard infrastructure approaches towards integration and delivering value to natural ecosystems and communities. On the next slide, you'll see that nature-based solutions hold a wide range of benefits, and these benefits can help contribute to delivering outcomes across resilience. There are 4 resilience dimensions here that we've been exploring and defining under the Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund, and we reflected on how NbS can contribute to each of these resilience outcomes across ecological resilience, improving ecosystems, improving biodiversity, physical resilience, reducing damages to infrastructure, social and institutional resilience, encouraging systems thinking through mobilizing community and cross-sectoral and administrative boundaries, and financial resilience by delivering greater efficiencies through cost savings from avoided costs from future damages. So how can NbS be supported? The Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund, administered by the ADB under the Urban Financing Partnership Facility, has not only supported the nature-based solutions themselves, like water-sensitive urban design in Govat Park in Vietnam, or green infrastructure design in New Clark City in the Philippines, but importantly, they've developed and applied tools and techniques that can be applied widely to project planning and design. So we've pulled our knowledge on the key actions for cities when applying nature-based solutions. And these are here on the slide, being open to knowledge sharing and learning, adopting a systems approach, enhancing evidence-based decision-making, breaking away from siloed governance and enhancing multi-sectoral collaboration, and leveraging community knowledge and action. The range of tools and techniques under the UCCRTF have embedded these key actions, and there have been projects and tools and techniques that have been developed across knowledge sharing and capacity building, like events like this, SPADE and other geospatial tools, climate risk and vulnerability assessments, collaborative planning such as Green City Action Plans, and co-design and community actions. So these tools and techniques are further shared in a knowledge product shown here on the screen called Enabling the Uptake of Nature-Based Solutions in Asian and Pacific Cities. And this knowledge product also provides the context for nature-based solutions, including the NbS alignment with operational priorities under ADB's Strategy 2030, and also meeting the goals of Paris Agreement. The knowledge product also responds to the demand from stakeholders and beneficiaries to provide evidence, including costs, to quantify the benefits of nature-based solutions. So our team member, Matt, will share more of the details on the range of benefit streams and an initial framework for quantifying and where possible costing the benefits of NbS. And he'll also showcase the framework through a number of UCCRTF case studies. Thanks, Joy.
Thank you very much, Sophia. And for our main presentation, we'd like to invite Mr. Matthew Savage. Matt is the director of the Oxford Consulting Partners and is a leading expert on the economics of resilience. He has undertaken economic assessments and appraisals for more than £2 billion of climate programming under the International Climate Fund of the United Kingdom. And he has developed guidance on value for money in resilience programming for the UK government. Currently, Matt is also leading the economics work of the Urban Climate Change Resilience Trust Fund here at the ADB. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So I've got about 10 minutes and four or five slides I'd like to go through. I'm hoping these will come up on screen. So I think the first point I'd like to make is that when we talk about quantifying the benefits of nature-based solutions, the initial reaction of those who work within MDBs and project development context is that this sounds more complicated than doing traditional grey infrastructure and doing cost benefits analysis or identifying benefit streams for nature isn't something that is as well developed as methodologies for other areas. That's primarily because the availability and range of nature-based solutions is much broader than typical grey infrastructure projects. It's quite easy to quantify the benefits for a road. It's much more difficult to quantify benefits for quite complex and integrated NbS activities. There's also a lack of sort of proxy data or evidence data that can be used. So it does require a little bit of piloting if you're to get to quite robust estimates of what the benefit streams are. Other issues include timescales. So for example, the benefits of some types of NbS interventions, certainly green, can take a long time to accrue. And therefore discounting rates can skew the cost benefit analysis. So benefits a long way in the future are usually discounted in economic models down to very little in the present day. The main issue, I think, is that policymakers just simply aren't very familiar with using NbS solutions. So there is going to have to be a process, I think, of familiarization, the use of facilities like UCCRTF to pilot and demonstrate that these sort of packages and solutions can be not only feasible, but also have greater benefits than the alternative grey infrastructure approaches. If we go through to the next slide, please. So Sophia set out a broad framework for nature-based solutions in terms of the sorts of benefit streams. What we've been doing is looking at within those four categories of ecological, physical, financial, and economic, and then social institutional, what are the drivers of those benefit streams, and then which of those can be quantified in economic terms. So, for example, we have ecological benefits like water or soil or air quality, habitat quality. We have social and institutional drivers such as improved health or sense of community. Now, those are fantastic benefits, but they're perhaps not so interesting to policymakers who like to count money or finance or economic benefits. So one of the challenges we have here is to take the broad set of benefits and try and understand which of those can be what we call monetized. So which of these can be turned into a dollar equivalent value for financial and economic benefits. And what we find when we look at this as a whole is that many of these are these sort of upstream drivers of downstream financial and economic benefits. And I'll talk a little bit about that on the next slide, please. So when the benefit streams are condensed into the economic benefits, we find three buckets into which we can put these. So the first set of buckets are what we call cost reductions. So these are ways that nature-based solutions can reduce the cost of delivering a project and also reduce the operating and potential replacement or maintenance costs over time. This is because nature-based solutions can be cheaper than their grey infrastructure equivalent. They require less maintenance, they can last longer, and they can offset the need to upgrade or replace infrastructure every 20, 30, 40 years. There are also benefits that flow through to users and communities within NbS type settings, and these might be reduced water or energy costs where these are built into the project, but also things like insurance where there's less need to or less cost involved in insuring infrastructure or green infrastructure compared to its grey equivalent. The second set of benefits we see are lower socioeconomic impacts. And what do we mean by this? Well, we mean the costs of climate or environmental related impacts such as flood. So many NbS solutions will have a positive benefit on water management because water is being collected, used and managed in a much more effective way. We find improvements in health costs, for example. These are measured in disability adjusted life years, dailies. So this is the extent to which people have reduced illness and death. And typical benefits may flow from improvements in vector or waterborne diseases due to better water management, but also things like improved heat island effect in urban environments. So green and nature-based solutions create shade and create better living amenity for the communities. We also have a set of greenhouse gas benefits, which are not directly related to the community, but which have global value in terms of the avoided emissions, but also stored carbon within large-scale NbS type activities. The third bucket is around economic value. You tend to get increased asset values when they are integrated into an NbS type environment, and that is property values. People like living near or in green or natural settings, and this can improve the value of property, for example. But you also then get small-scale uses like increased tourism, revenues, leisure, commercial activities associated with that, and small-scale productive uses like fisheries or small-scale agriculture. And the good news is that we do have methods to measure all of these things. So it is possible to do an integrated approach to doing cost benefits analysis and measuring benefit streams for NbS. If we can go to the next slide, please. So the last part of my presentation is really showcasing two interventions within the UCCRTF where we've looked at doing NbS type solutions. The first of these is New Clark City. So this was a new city built, which was originally approved by the government of the Philippines in 2014. A city of approximately 1 million inhabitants on the site of an old military canton. And there was interest in turning this into a different sort of city, so a green city, using green infrastructure rather than grey infrastructure to build a large quarter of the city and to help manage the river zone of the Cut River using natural methods rather than by river embankments and river training. And you can see in the diagram on the right that this resulted in a plan or some ideas to use the natural floodplains of the river for water retention, open green spaces, and to link the city and the transport infrastructure through it with the natural environment. Now, as part of the master planning, there was a focus on looking at the differential in costs between using a grey and a green or NbS focused infrastructure approach. And what the master plan found was that the green aspects or an NbS based approach would be cheaper and significantly cheaper than delivering it through grey infrastructure. And that was primarily because you would need less concrete, less river embankments, fewer bridges, and fewer earthworks in order to try and manage that river flow. And the benefits were approximately 50% in terms of the reduced capital costs of construction. The master plan also identified another other sort of upstream benefits or NbS benefits, like improved flood management, improved health costs, green branding, for example. So this was seen as an advantage of the city attracting the Southeast Asian Games, and there were improved property values around the site. So this was sort of an initial attempt to try and create the benefit streams in terms of improved costs for the government of the Philippines. The second case study I'd like to put up is the revitalization of informal settlements and their environments, which was an attempt to introduce nature-based solutions into small-scale, community-level water and sanitation management. It's piloted in Makassar in Indonesia, and here it was using things like septic tanks, biofiltered garden, wastewater treatment, better drainage, wetlands for flood and tidal management, etc. And this was a small pilot with a view to improving or providing NbS solutions for a community of about 1,500–1,600 people. And here there was a fuller cost-benefit analysis which was done, looking at some of the benefits that we've described, such as saving in water costs through better water capture and storage, the avoided costs of grey infrastructure, improvements in flood management, better livelihoods, better health outcomes. And interestingly, even in a small-scale community-led environment like this, we also identified increasing property and land values, because people, even within quite poor communities, were wanted to live in these sort of environments where there was basically improved amenity, greener, and just better functioning infrastructure. An economic return of 17.5% across the package or measures and interventions, which is generally seen as significantly higher than the returns that would be needed to justify it from an ADB or an FDB investment perspective. So I'll hand over at that point back to Joy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt, for your presentation. Thank you for giving us an overview on the challenges in quantifying the benefits, and also at the same time illustrating to us an approach on doing it. For those who are joining us in this webinar, we would also like to encourage you to type your questions in the chat box, or later on at the Q&A segment, please raise your hand so that we can have more interactions with Matt and to clarify anything from his presentation. We're also joined today by 4 distinguished speakers who have directly worked or are working in NbS projects. And we'd be happy to hear on their reflections on the presentation, as well as relate their own experiences and insights. We're joined today by Amy Campbell Milagrosa, who's an economist at the Economic Research and Regional Cooperation Department, and also concurrently an urban development specialist at the Pacific Department here at ADP. Amy also conducts research on ecosystem and growth of tech startups while leading the economic analysis reviews of urban development, water supply, and tourism investment projects. Prior to joining ADP, Amy was a senior researcher at the German Development Institute and also did fellowships at the University of Bonn, Food Agriculture Organization, and Cornell University. And we're also joined today by Mr. Stefan Rao, who's a senior urban development specialist at the Asia Regional Department. He's leading ADB's urban development support to the People's Republic of China and significantly contributes to ADB-wide urban policy and related publications. Stefan champions urban-world integration, climate change adaptation in sponge cities with nature-based solutions. We also have with us today Mr. Jos Timmerman, who's the senior water expert at Water Frames. He has worked as an advisor to the Dutch Ministry of Infrastructure and Water Management and as senior researcher at Wageningen Environmental Research. And we also have Lara Arjan from the Urban Sector Group, who has more than 20 years of experience in program design. Lara has previously worked as urban planner of the city of Edmonton in Canada and has also worked extensively in the Middle East and North Africa regions on urban planning, water resource management, environment, peace building, PPPs, youth engagement, social entrepreneurship, and governance. We have specific questions also for our four distinguished panelists. So we'll start off with Amy. Hello, Amy.
Hi, Joy. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, Amy. So, Amy, many co-benefits from nature-based solutions will be slow to accrue. I don't know if you agree with us on that. Longer timescales make it difficult to model returns for investments and compare future benefits against current cost. What do you think are some priorities to address this challenge? And who might be some of the partners or allies to help overcome this challenge?
Okay, thanks for your question, Joy, and good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be here, and a pleasure for me to see familiar faces, actually. So before I answer your question, Joy, I'd like to just briefly share my experience in quantifying nature-based solutions. So I'm very happy that Matt identified the RISE project in Makassar, Indonesia, because I was involved in the quantification of economic benefits of that project, for which Lara is also involved. And also, I was involved in Stefan's successful project, which he probably will elaborate later on. So to answer your question, so I have 5 minutes. Let me share my experience in quantifying the economic benefits of a 310 million ADB project in Bangladesh. The project is called the Second Coastal Towns Environmental Infrastructure Improvement Project. It's a mouthful. It's a sector development loan. The project's outcome is climate and disaster resilience of coastal towns strengthened. And in the concept paper, there were several outputs, of course, that fall under various sectors for economic analysis. So for those who are not familiar, we have sector-specific approaches to economic analysis. So in this project of my friend Lakshmi, she had outputs which are cyclone shelters, which would fall under housing, if you think about it. But then through the project, it fell under education because the shelters will be used for schools during non-cyclone months. It had transport components, which is it had roads, building of roads. It had water supply components with drainage networks and solid waste management. So there are 3 different kinds of approaches that we could do to do economic analysis for this. So what we did here is we identified the potential economic benefits that would fall under each. I also identified the methods of benefits estimation, and we also advise the project team whether a survey is needed or whether the data could be obtained from secondary sources. All of these benefits need to be aligned with the 2017 ADB guidelines for economic analysis of projects. Can we click, please? So while ADB has definitions for resilience, please note that resilience and its measurement is not mentioned anywhere at all in the 2017 guidelines for economic analysis projects, but environmental benefits are mentioned. So when we were working with the project team, we had to be very innovative. We had to dig into the objectives of the project and look into existing ADB definitions and define what does resilience mean for this project given the proposed outputs. So we came up with a prototype model of sector-specific benefits, which is what you see on the upper right, and also an umbrella of parameters for measuring resilience that is project-specific. So Matt defined these as cost reductions and as lower socioeconomic impacts. Can we click, please? Thank you. So in the end, the economic analysis, we were very happy because we came up with the proposed benefits and additional benefits that were aligned with the guidelines, but we also added other benefits. So as Safia mentioned, these are physical resilience types and financial economic resilience types of benefits, which you see on the left. So we had the original benefits that we proposed and then additional benefits that align with the resilience definitions of ADB. We were able to show that the project is economically viable, surpassing the 9% threshold. So your question is, how do we measure resilience going forward? What are the lessons learned and who could be the partners? So in ADB, we have usually the 6% threshold. So this is a lower opportunity cost for the return of the investment than the 9%. And typically, this is for projects that generate social benefits, education projects, or projects that generate primarily environmental benefits. It's because it takes a long time for the investment to accrue the benefits. So we give it a 6% threshold. So here, what we found out is that you could actually use the 9%, the more rigid 9% threshold, if the economic analysis is well thought of. And this strongly confirms the robustness of the project. We don't have to go down in terms of the benefits threshold because the project in itself is economically viable. Second, what I would like to share is that we need to have standardized parameters. We need to have a standardized approach to measure the economic benefits of resilience. And that approach needs to be simple, needs to be cost effective, and it needs to be robust, so that project teams can implement it. We have already a lot of things that we need to do to check the boxes. But so this should not be difficult to implement. And this is really overdue. ADB has been investing in a lot of resilience projects in Asia and the Pacific, and we need to have a standardized measure, a simple standardized measure that we can use to measure resilience. And finally, and I'm going to close my discussion now, for this to be reality, a one ADB approach needs to be taken between ERCD and operations in developing this tool. So I welcome the work that Matt, the UCCRTF, and USG are doing in this, and then we would like to collaborate ERCD because at the end we are the vanguards of economic analysis, and we need to revise the 2017 guidelines based on this new measure. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Amy, and thank you again for reminding us about the 6% threshold or the 9% threshold, and you were able to elaborate it also for the understanding of everyone who are not familiar with this, and also the emphasis on the standardized approach, which is simple and robust for quantifying the benefits. I think it's also timely that the next speaker is Mr. Stefan Rao, who's worked on several projects also in the PRC on water-sensitive urban design and NbS. And our specific questions for our Stefan relates to the impacts of NbS. So normally these are also transboundary Stefan, would you have any good examples of collaboration to capture and account for these benefits? And how were these done?
Thank you, Joy, for this kind invitation and this the organization of this meeting, and for having me. It's a pleasure. So let me give a little bit more background of what we've been doing in the PRC on nature-based solution or investing in natural capital. In fact, I think in China we've done quite a bit even before it became popular on supporting natural capital development and nature-based solutions. Even before this sponge city concept and term came up in 2014 in China with a program of national support. We've been supporting river rehabilitation. I think is in 2008 in Nanjing, a major river was rehabilitated. A big wetland was planned. It was integrated with wastewater supply, wastewater treatment. And that was really a very significant impact that benefited the city. It even received the United Nations UN Habitat Award. We've done cleaning up of rivers, like, for example, the Songhua River in Jilin and Heilongjiang provinces with a major effort applying nature-based solutions, but also gray infrastructure. We've done mining remediation projects where we clean up mining sites and impacts from mining and reuse it for green spaces or other urban uses. And we've also done that rehabilitating solid waste landfill sites in several projects, and now in one in Hunan province. We've also done afforestation projects to support resilience against desertification especially in the northwest of China. Of course, that's also a nature-based solution for improving resilience. And then I think the more integrated projects that we have done since maybe the last 8 years successively, and also in a form of an evolution, if you wish, integrating more and more gray and green infrastructure, and also integrating more and more types of green infrastructure and nature-based solutions with hydraulic functions. So the one project that may be a little bit of cross-jurisdictional coordination that you mentioned, Joy, was done in the province of Jiangxi, in the city of Pingxiang, where we had supported river rehabilitation and flood risk management using green approach. So we have restored and protected wetlands, rehabilitated riparian landscape along rivers, and then also came up with this idea and concept of rural-urban flood risk partnerships, where we sort of reduce the amount of protection of farm fields and increase the protection of cities, and then have a mechanism for compensation in case of flooding. The project that was mentioned by Amy was a project in Jilin, Yanji, a city in the northeast of China, where we have an anchor investment of a bus rapid transit and sort of integrated investments in green sponge city infrastructure, and sort of along the corridor of the BRT, we have green spaces that function, that serve with functions of this NbS, like bioswales that collect water, rainwater, and then filter it into the ground. And then we have developed a sponge city master plan for that town, and then included investments in the project of rain gardens, bioswales, opening up of existing drainage canals or drainage pipes underground, and then opening them up into pleasant river surface rivers for the city, and then integrated with road green spaces alongside. And before this water gets discharged into the river, we have what we call end of pipe solutions, also as nature-based principles, where we filter the water with a sand filter and polish it with some wetlands. In terms of economic analysis, I really very much welcome this initiative by UCCRTF and the Urban Sector Group, and I appreciate Matt's comprehensive list of potential benefits. For the Yanji project, we had even tried to integrate the health benefits. I don't know if that can be seen. Oh no, that's funny. It blends out. So we had developed the system and method of healthy and age-friendly cities master planning, and then we had identified specific benefits for health. For example, reduced exposure to air pollutions, improved water supply safety and security, reduced exposure to polluted surface water, reduced traffic incidents. And then an interesting aspect is sort of the green spaces and the non-motorized transport, pedestrians and bicycles would contribute to health through physical exercise. And we used the method that was developed by the World Health Organization, WHO, that they call HEAT, also to quantify such benefits. So this was, I think, an interesting feature of our economic analysis there. And then, of course, the typical one that Matt had also mentioned, avoided cost from reduced flooding. And also something like if you have a flood, you continue or you discontinue urban operation, and then the avoided losses from continued operation is something that we quantified. But generally, there is still a lack. And in fact, I'm really happy that Ailey is here and also drives forward in revising the guideline for economic analysis, because we always were struggling to quantify and to agree with our economic research department on a method to quantify especially land value, which was difficult for them to accept. And I'm very happy that we now find methods to quantify that, and then if that can be accepted. Of course, there's even more benefits than what Matt had in his list, like land value was shown, but I think general competitiveness of cities, I think that was implied in some of the comments here. But I think this is a major benefit that we should also see to quantify. Of course, it's not on the output or even outcome level, that's sort of more on the income level, but if there is a way to quantify that, I think that would be very useful. Another thing I think would be interesting, if there is a way to quantify, I think there would be a relationship, sort of an exponential relationship, if you wish, between having a fragmented approach of investments here and there in nature-based solution, on points or linear systems or even parks, versus creating systems like nature-based networks and even regional systems. And I think the benefits would be exponentially increasing if such systems would be indeed planned and implemented. And I would be wondering if that can also be sort of part of the study to see sort of the effectiveness of nature-based solutions if they're done fragmented or systemically. I think one aspect that is very important in the future for resilience is the aspect of heat. There was just a publication out from UCCRTF on heat for heat. This is already the key climate change related cause of premature deaths, not flooding, but heat. So premature deaths from extreme heat waves, from climate change, that will have to be addressed in the future much more, and maybe that can also be a benefit that can be quantified here in your system. And of course, nature-based solutions would be most suitable to improve resilience against that. I'll stop here.
Thank you very much, Dr. Stefan. That's a wide array of project examples you've shared with us, and indeed, long before the term nature-based solutions became trending, so many activities related to it has been done. And also noted that NbS has a good intersection across different teams and sectors such as air quality, health, transport, and so on. And that indeed there should be more emphasis on how the other benefits, for example, in land value capture, avoided loss should be integrated into any computations for quantifying benefits. We're also looking at nature-based solutions done in smaller scales at community level. And we'd like also to hear from Mr. Jos Timmerman. So Jos has been involved in the UCCRTF small-scale projects to build community-level resilience. Jos, could you tell us more a bit about the opportunities and challenges of doing community-based, nature-based solutions, and what do you see are the important roles of the communities? Over to you, Jos.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Joy, and thank you for inviting me for this very interesting webinar. So I've been involved in a series of community-led projects, as you said, and so this was basically done in a way to first try to get the community involved and trying to get them bring up solutions for the problems they are facing. And so one important aspect that was done in several of the projects was that the solid waste was a problem, and solid waste management was then the solution to work on that. So, like for instance, clogging of drainage systems from solid waste, but then dividing between the organic waste and the non-organic waste, and then use the organic waste for composting. So that could be seen also as an nature-based solution. So that was part of many of these projects. Another one was that there was a need for reforestation, which was basically outside the jurisdiction of the city, but it was realized nonetheless, which was very interesting because it would really help to reduce the flood risk. And then two other projects that we've been developing a park, a green park, also for reducing of heat stress, but also for improving the drainage of excess water from rainfall. So basically those were the solutions that came out of the communities. And well, the one of the issues that is, say, difficult is to bring together the community and have them discuss on the situation. That takes time, but on the other hand, when the people get involved and understand what their input can be and what their incentive is, basically for being involved in these projects and having the opportunity to improve the situation, then it starts working, and then people are involved also in the solutions, and they can be, say, also part of helping to implement solutions, to also maintain solutions. So that would be something that is really important, I think, because in the end measures are taken at local scale, and so the local community has to have some connection to the measures that are taken. So that, I think, is the most important element of these community-led projects. I really liked Matthew's presentation, summing up all the different elements that you can see if you are looking at costs. So we didn't do that in our projects yet, but maybe that's something to do in future. And what I also see is that the communities can be involved in monitoring say, what are the benefits, what do they get out of the projects, and because it's also reinforces their commitments, I think, to the project, if they also are involved in looking at the benefits and looking at how their solutions, basically because they came up with the solutions, are really helping and can be very cost effective. So from that perspective, I think it's also good to try to keep the communities involved in the measures that are taken, and also for the maintenance and the operation of the solutions. So that basically sums up, I guess, what the importance is of having the community involved and keeping them involved also over time.
Thank you.
So that's like to
thank you, Yos. And I think we also get practical examples and insight also from Lara. Lara has been working on community-led projects for the RISE project, and we'd also want to hear from Lara. What are the entry points for influencing communities to consider nature-based solutions?
Yeah.
And yes, over to you, Lara.
I mean, if there's other follow-up questions, fine. Good evening, everybody. I don't think I'm going to mention in terms of entry points anything that Yos hasn't mentioned right now. I might have, just put in some organization into them and quickly mention a few examples of what was done. I think the best way to involve community and decision makings alike, I'm going to use the P word right now. Yes, pilots. Call it demonstration site, call it whatever you want, but you need to show, you need to run a project at multiple scales to show people that yes, it is feasible both technically, socioeconomically, and also financially and economically. Sometimes the economics makes sense, but not the fiscal parts make sense. And that's very, very, very characteristic of nature-based solutions. I would say that for us in Makassar, we worked with the existing networks of people in an informal settlement. So RISE was building this demonstration site in an informal settlement using nature-based solutions to do wastewater treatment. And we did some flood protection as well in the community. And we worked with people who were already there. That is one point of entry that I think is very, very important. I think also we also capitalized on the knowledge that was already there. We capitalized on their knowledge in terms of, we never did any surveys in terms of flooding because they showed us places in their community to demonstrate up to where the water comes and when it comes. So we knew that from them. We also involved them in the code design. So for instance, their houses, in order to, there was a platform amongst the homes and the households there. And we wanted to remove the platform. We said there will be no flooding, so there is no need for it. But they asked for the platform because the platform was very important to them. And we did that as well. And some of the things that were part of the design was good because that platform enabled the fishermen and the fishmongers to come into the community and sell their fish. So for the provisioners of the community, the women, the hunter-gatherers of the community, they were very happy because they said, well, the fish still can come and they still have access to the community. Thank you for keeping that platform. We also, we worked with them also to show them the demonstration site that they co-built, but we also used the indigenous resources as well. So some of the building was done by the community members. If there were builders in the community, we hired them, we used them. So that was also, I guess, an aspect that we have to always keep in mind. How do they contribute for the project to be theirs and establish its ownership at the very beginning? I think these are some of the entry points, and one of them also is the training. So once the demonstration site was up and going, we started to train them on the different technical aspects in very layman terms, but also on how to do the monitoring, the maintenance and the operation, which wasn't necessarily handed over to the community, but to do that, we involved also other stakeholders from outside the government, the municipality who are supposed to be taking over this. And we involved them in that maintenance and the operation aspect of it. So I would say just work with the community if there is space. It's very, very important to work with the community, the existing community. Don't create your own committee. Whatever committee there is, just work with it, I guess. I also would like to emphasize, and this is something I always want to emphasize a lot, cannot emphasize enough, is the gender balance. So we noticed that in a lot of these projects, the community, the women in the community will do this. It's empowering them. Sometimes it's adding to their burdens. So I think what we were very cognizant about is the division of effort between men and women, and making sure that if there is something that was remunerated, that women could partake as well. Because what ends up is that men are partaking in whatever pays, and women are partaking in maintenance of the infrastructure on the long term. So I think another entry point would be, I would say, through the people of the community taking into consideration the gender balance. Don't discard one gender over another, or give one gender more privileges in the community than another. The beauty of involvement of community meant that we had smooth sailing during COVID. The project continued during COVID, remotely, but it continued. And I think that was an attestation to that. These community members really care about this project. So that's it for me in terms of community.
Thank you, Lara. Indeed, it's important to have a proof of concept or to do these pilots to demonstrate the value of nature-based solutions. And then there's a need for a strong community engagement and to always look out for the gender element. So we're a bit short of time, so apologies, we have to cut short the Q&A segment. We have excellent questions on the chat box. I'm not sure if our panel of speakers can respond. Maybe for those who are not able to read out, we'll just respond to you in writing. But let me go through the first question. Many benefits of NbS are intangible and do not have market price. What would you think about non-market valuation approach to quantify the monetary value for non-market benefits of NbS? Maybe we'd like to hear from Matt on this. Matt?
Yeah, thanks, Joy. It's a very good question. So there are estimation approaches called willingness to pay, WTP approaches, where you work with groups of people to understand what they'd be willing to pay for an item which doesn't have a tradable market value. And this is often used in areas like energy or telecoms or other services. And I think within the NbS arena, it's really about the amenity of living in and around green spaces. So some of that is reflected in property values, for example, that can be captured to some extent. The challenge of doing this is it's quite labor intensive. So what I'd recommend is that if ADB were going to do this, it would do it as a sort of piloting approach to try and establish some proxy benchmarks for willingness to pay for nature-based solutions or amenity, rather than mainstream it into every project, because that would add complexity and cost.
Thank you very much, Matt. And we'll get back to the others. If you also have questions, please send us a chat message and we'll respond to that. To offer her reflection and closing remarks, we'd also like to invite Dr. Jingmin Wang. She's the director of the Urban and Water Division at the Pacific Regional Department. And concurrently, Jingmin is also the Urban Sector Group Committee Chair here at the ADB. Jingmin has more than 30 years of experience in the fields of urban planning, water, wastewater, and solid waste management. And prior to joining at ADB, she has worked in the People's Republic of China and was a fellow and lecturer at Oxford University, where she has also earned her doctorate in water science. Over to you, Jingmin.
Thank you. Thank you, Joy. Can you hear me okay? Thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks to all the presenters, panelists for sharing your expertise and insights, and also to all the participants from national and city governments, private sector, academia, and also ADB, who came to join this joint webinar by environment and urban sector groups. Nice to meet you all virtually. First, of course, we all recognize the natural-based solution is an important composition of the integrated urban resilience building. It plays a very essential role in addressing interrelated urban climate change and environmental and biodiversity challenges. But there are gaps to put the natural-based solution in our real practice in the DMCs due to the policy, institutional, and technical issues. We have heard of that. Fundamentally, there are challenges in measuring the natural-based solution benefits, as it is very different from our conventional green infrastructure. And we all know we cannot manage what we cannot measure. So how to measure it is really the key. And today's webinar really gave me a very good explanation on that. Matt has emphasized the following challenges in measuring the natural-based solution benefits, including first, the very wide range benefits covering social, environmental, and ecological perspectives. Second is the challenges in basic data solutions, basic data collections. And then third, natural-based solution always has a longer time scale for benefit deliveries because it's part of the nature, yeah. And then number four, lack of the familiarity among the policymakers. And number five, natural-based solution benefits going beyond the administrative boundaries. As also I mentioned, is part of the nature. There's no rigid boundary. All that I fully agree. One more thing I want to add is that there is no standard natural-based solution. Every case is unique. So the approach to capture or measure the benefit is also very, very unique. And it's so nice to know that from our webinar that such indicator and the methodology of the measurings do exist. And we need to do more coherent frameworks. The quantification approach shared by Matt and also by our panelists explained how physical, social, institutional, financial, and economic, and also ecological benefit streams can be broadly grouped into key economic benefits, namely cost reductions, added economic value, and lower social economic impacts. The case studies from UCCRTF projects in Philippines and the rise in Indonesia and the panel discussions cases in Bangladesh and PR China showed how such quantification approaches can be applied. It also clarifies there are plenty of opportunities in implementing such approaches within our projects in cities and also in communities. I would like to encourage further action on push such dialogues with our clients and partners, so everyone can be aware that the natural-based solution is not only a concept, but a doable work with measurable benefit. And from Qing Feng's opening remark, we can see that ADB is putting a lot of effort to further support the implementation of nature-positive approaches, including the establishment of a regional natural capital lab working group across. The natural capital lab aims to enhance the understanding of the value of natural capital and consider payments for ecological services. The natural-based solution is part of that. It is one ADB work, and it would break away from our siloed engineering considerations and enhance multi-sectoral collaboration. So 3 takeaways from today's webinar. First, we need integrated approaches to build urban resilience and fight against the climate changes. And then natural-based solution is an important composition. Second, it is very challenging to measure the natural-based solution benefit. And there are quantification approaches, namely cost reduction, added economic value, and lower socioeconomic impacts. And the third, we need to continue to plan and push the dialogues upstream with our clients and partners and work with other ADB colleagues to expand the nature-based solution in our projects. Again, I would like to say thanks to everyone for your active participation, and I look forward to continuing cooperation for natural-based solution and natural positive approaches in the future work. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jingmin, and thank you everyone for those who joined us today on behalf of the Urban Sector Group and the Environment Thematic Group. Please also join the other webinars as part of this nature-based solution series. Have a nice day ahead, and thank you.
Thank you, everyone.